Imagine being kidnapped and convincing your kidnapper to hand you back your phone. On September 4th, 2017, in Carlton, Georgia, 21-year-old Jada Gladden went to her local Kroger to get some tea and medicine because she wasn't feeling very well. As she was walking back to her car, a man named Timothy Wilson approached her and asked her if she had a lighter. Jayla told the man that she didn't have a lighter and continued on her way to her car. As Jayla arrived to her car, she felt a sudden stab in her stomach region. When she looked down, she noticed there was a knife pointed at her, and behind her was this man. Timothy made her get into the car and had her climb over to the passenger seat. He then started to drive while still holding the knife against Jayla. After a while of driving, he stopped the vehicle around a church parking lot. Trigger warning, SA. He had Jayla remove all her clothing and then forced himself on her and her over an hour and sodomized her. He then drove them to a park where he had her sit next to him as his arm was around her, explaining to her how easy it would be for him to kill her and to bury her somewhere in the park. After a while of being at the park, they got into the vehicle, and this is where Timothy told Jayla that he was going to rob a gas station because he needed money. Jayla calmed herself down and started having a conversation with Timothy. Timothy had asked her how to get to Atlanta, and he had also disclosed the fact that he had been in prison for a very long time and had just gotten out. This is when Jayla thought to herself that if he's been in prison for a very long time, that he doesn't really know how technology works. So she offered to show him how to get there by using her phone. He ended up believing her and allowed her to navigate him using her actual phone. This is when Jayla turned down the brightness to her phone so that her kidnapper could not see what was going on, and texted her boyfriend Tamir by texting him her location. Here are the text messages. I'll move real quick so you can screenshot it. He ended up asking, "Where are you at?" She said, "Kidnapped." He said, "Stop playing." She said, "In God." And then he decided to go to the authorities. Jayla texted him back notifying that she was scared. He had a knife. They were in her car, and not to have the police, if they do show up with the lights, because then he's going to end up killing her. At this point, authorities are tracking where Jayla is, tracking the vehicle that they're driving, and they're aware that he's trying to rob a station. Having no idea what's going on, he ends up taking the phone away from Jayla and then puts her in the trunk. Police officers around the area were notified about the car they were looking for, and there was one officer who was locally there, spotted Jayla and her perpetrator, and parked in the highway with his lights off. Timothy still noticed the officer and sped for the exit, but ended up colliding with 4 other cars. Using this as an opportunity, Jayla got out of the vehicle and went straight to the authorities and was led to safety. Timothy made a run for it, but was eventually captured. Turns out that Timothy had been in and out of prison since he was 13 years old. Timothy was charged and sentenced to life. And let's not forget, Jayla's a true badass.
How this man chose his victim is terrifying. In 2019, a woman walking her dog was approached by a young girl who had come out of the woods and told her a horrifying story that a man had broken into her house in the middle of the night, killed her parents, and taken her back to his home where he kept her underneath his bed until she had the chance to escape. The girl was 13-year-old Jamie Kloss, who had been missing for 88 days. Her captor was 21-year-old Jake Patterson, who had no criminal record. Once he was arrested, he confessed that he was driving by a school bus one day when he saw Jamie get on by her house, and without knowing who she was, how many people lived in the house, or anything else about her, he decided in that moment to kill her entire family and take her.
This is an extremely disturbing case. So in August 2005, China Arnold of Ohio was having an argument over Paris's paternity with the dad. After they fought, she stuck her 28-day-old baby inside of this microwave for over 2 minutes with it running. She ended up dying when her temperature reached 108. The next day, the parents took her to the hospital, and China tried to say that she was intoxicated so she doesn't know how the child died, but that was bullshit. While she was in jail awaiting trial, she ended up having a romantic relationship with her cellmate, and she confessed to her how guilty she felt over the murder. So that lady ended up testifying against her, which caused China to get life in prison. It's honestly so messed up. China tried to get her other son to lie and say that the neighbor killed her baby, but that was proved to be BS, and now she'll rot in prison.
Welcome to Crime TikTok. Today we're going to talk about children who have killed. In this video, we're going to focus on the 11-year-old girl Mary Flora Bell. Many believe that she wouldn't have stopped killing if she wasn't arrested. The first child who was murdered by Mary was 4-year-old Martin Brown. He was found on the floor of an abandoned house by a group of boys that were playing in the area. Blood and saliva were dropping down his cheek. Soon after, these young boys saw Mary and her best friend Norma coming towards the house. However, during the investigation, the police found no evidence of foul play and left his cause of death as open. This was also because they found an empty bottle of aspirin nearby the body. A few weeks later, another boy's body was found. It was 3-year-old Brian Howe. He was strangled to death. He was found in an industrial area of the town and he had been mutilated on the thighs and genitals. And the pair of scissors which were used were right next to him. The letter M was also carved with a razor on his belly. Mary stood out as suspicious to the police because she was happy about the murder. And she got caught. She murdered her sister and posted all the evidence on TikTok. Let's talk about 14-year-old Claire Miller. On the left side, we have Claire Miller, and on the right side, we have her 19-year-old sister, Helen Miller. The murder occurred on the early hours while their parents were asleep. In her TikTok, she showed a white glove, which was covered in blood, and also in the snow, before showing a blood-soaked giraffe toy. And in the TikTok, it switched from the glove to the giraffe. Her TikTok account had over 32,000 followers and millions of views. And her video ended up on the For You page and wasn't taken down for a while, so millions and millions of people saw it. However, TikTok has taken down her account. But this isn't the first time she's posted weird things. She posted a video about a Korean comic where a young mentally ill man gets raped and abused in the army, as well as many dark animes. Police say Miller called shortly after 1 a.m. and was found in the snow covered in blood.
Let's talk about a girl who spent 44 days in hell. Her name is Jonku Furuta and she was 16 years old at the time. She was very popular at school because of her beauty, but not only that, she was extremely book smart. She was a straight A student. One day while at school, a boy who was affiliated with a very dangerous gang asked her out and she rejected him. He took the rejection to heart and he set up a plan to kidnap her with his friends. The kidnapping was successful and they took Jonku back to one of the houses that the boy's parents owned. 2 days after her missing, her family put in a missing persons report. Everybody in Japan was looking for her. So the boys made her call her parents and tell them that she was safe and that she was just with a friend. The parents that owned the house knew that Jonku was there, but they were paid hush money to stay silent, as well as they were scared to say anything to the police because they knew what the boys were capable of. Things are about to get graphic, so this is your chance to scroll away. They kept her naked for most of the time to humiliate her. They took turns raping her. She was raped by more than 100 men, more than 500 times. And one time there was a day where she was raped 12 times back to back. Most of the time after they were finished doing that to her, they would often pee on her. They would smash her face into cement and beat her with golf clubs. They would make her touch herself in front of the men to turn them on before they would rape her. They would stick all sorts of crazy objects inside of her, from scissors, needles, iron rods, and one time there was a hot light bulb that they forced inside of her and twisted it around until it popped inside of her. Sometimes they would grab fireworks and shove them up her butt and light them. Other times they would have a big weight and drop them on her stomach while her hands are tied above her head. They would tie her from the ceiling and punch her like she was a punching bag. During this time it was winter and below freezing, so they would make her sleep outside on the balcony. They would burn her eyelids with hot wax, and they even crushed her hands so much that she couldn't hold anything. It would take her about an hour to crawl downstairs just to use the restroom. She was severely dehydrated and malnourished because of the fact that she couldn't eat, and whenever she did, she would throw it up because her organs were so damaged. Her suffering came to an end when she won a game against the boys and they put lighter fluid all over her face, arms, torso, and legs, and they lit her on fire. She fell into shock and they thought that she was just pretending to die, but she was actually dead. So they filled this huge drum with cement and shoved her body down there. Then they disposed of her somewhere in Tokyo. While being questioned about a different case, one of the boys thought that they were talking about Jonku, and he quickly admitted to everything and told the police where her body was and all the horrible things that they did to her. The time they got was very short. I believe the highest one of the boys received was 20, and the rest of the boys were sentenced below that. So they're now all in their mid-30s.